Hi, welcome. My name is Dale McCluskey, and on this video is part of my series pertaining to dog training. And again, this is focusing on the average dog owner who's looking for answers in terms of understanding, okay, what is a process, what's the right path to follow when it comes to resolving behavioral problems. And so on this video, I'm going to be actually talking about behavioral issues, how to think about those in terms of relationship, in terms of dogs as social animals, as pack animals, and our role in that. How is a dog's decision-making process influenced and governed, okay, at that level with how they connect with us that way. Very, very important information. And so here, let's get my cup of coffee. Okay, so this video series is going to be more kind of just kind of a relaxed type of conversation here. I want to go through a lot of these different dynamics, and I would encourage you to, if you have a comment, if you have a question, to leave it on the bottom of the video, and I will respond. My goal is to respond to as many questions as possible as I go through this series. Okay, those who are looking for information. So I got my Tim Hortons mug here. Tim Hortons, actually, it is Tim Hortons coffee. I am Canadian, my background, living in the U.S., permanent resident here. And so again, talk about my own journey. I'll talk about some as I go through here in terms of just understanding, okay, through, again, this is where critical thinking is really necessary. And so on this video here, I want to talk about how to think about, okay, behavioral issues. And again, line this up with a parenting example. Very helpful. If you're a parent, this will be very helpful to be able to reconcile, okay, what's, in terms of why it's absolutely critical in terms of your role. But again, talk about the role of influence. Again, so much confusion out there in the dog training world, understanding regarding, people refer to influence as, discipline, punishment, correcting a dog, but how does that play off of this idea as well? I'm going to talk about that too as I go through all this, to really break this stuff down in as a simple way as possible for people to understand why that's a problem. Okay, if that doesn't line up, that's not part of the process the right way. Okay, we'll talk about the right way. Of course, there is like over the top. Okay, you talk about those who are over the top when it comes to influence, okay, interacting certain ways that would be very questionable, the optics of all that. I'll talk about a lot of that too. Well, that still comes from a place of confusion. I understand it's still related to confusion. So we're going to talk through the confusion to understand why it's important that lines up versus going completely the other way. Okay, you talk about force-free. What does that even mean? Like, is even such a thing? But beyond that, the confusion related to how influence fits, okay? Because even through balance training, it still doesn't fit, okay? And again, this is why, again, you talk about this, I talk about these gaps and how that leads to assuming things that aren't true or are wrong regarding relationship, regarding perceptions of dogs changing. You want to make sure that the perceptions are actually changing. Now, how do you actually put that to the test? Well, we'll talk through that as well. But again, what about this whole issue about relationship, about how should you even think about behavioral issues? Well, the right way, or the way that you should think about them, and again, going back to the parenting example, which is helpful, consider the parenting example in terms of a selfish child. Child's become selfish over time, but again, as a child becomes selfish over time, what happens? Well, behavioral problems escalate, okay? Behavioral problems escalate, right? The child's attitude starts getting worse. They start having problems with their peers, with the parent, with their siblings, with everything, the environment that they're in, okay? They can't get along, but they're become very self-focused, right? And so, but behavior issues escalate, right to a point of what? Of maybe bullying and violence, okay? But again, take that example and now transfer that over to dogs as social animals, as pack animals. Think about behavior issues escalating, to a point of aggression, right? But again, how that connects to just like the parenting style, how that connects to how dogs connect with us at that level. Dogs as social animals, how this decision-making process is governed. Okay, understand how it's influenced. So, but understand something here, as you know, and I talk about critical thinking at the beginning and being able to, I talk about my own journey years ago and being able to really, come to that kind of epiphany moment to say, okay, what's going on here? Okay, I mean, what's the, how does this connect? Stepping back from it, that's important. You have to be able to step back from all this stuff and say, okay, let the chips fall where they may, but I may not like what, this involves more, and this is why people, I think, a lot of times are kind of don't like to hear certain things, because if it puts more of the focus on the human, right? Well, guess what? It takes more of the focus off the dog a certain way, right? Which is what this is about, is really say, just like the parent. Focus comes on your parenting style, probably not going to like that. It's so much of this can blame shift over, or there's kind of what I call displaced blame, and I'll talk about that, how things can, those dynamics, kind of how they work to kind of shift the focus such a way it almost appears as though it's not really about you can kind of displace that, but that's I'll talk through that, because this is important stuff. Because understand, if the solution, because always keep in mind, okay, if your goal here is to have a better relationship with your dog at the end, then this stuff matters. Understand that there's no way around this, and it just appears, understand there's so much that appears to be a way around this. Like, people look at this idea, the trains and learn based exercise, say, well, okay, I can trust what I see, and I don't have to do things a certain way, or the focus can shift a certain way, and it's a sleight of hand almost, right? It's like, but again, understand the truth will always be there. Always consequences for that, because at the end, and this is part of it, is the blame starts shifting, saying, well, it must just be something wrong with the dog, it must be the genetics of the dog, and the reality is, well, no, okay, I mean, that stuff is fixable stuff. But then, so much of this is a culture. Understand this is because understand that the majority, whether people identify as balanced or force-free, are doing it. Okay, they're all jumping in the same way, which I'm gonna talk as I go through these videos. I'm gonna talk about why the jumping in point is so important right at the very beginning, like 5 seconds in. Okay, like just right away. It matters. Just like walking into a relationship problem between, a parent and a selfish child. Where's your focus need to be on? Sit down and have that conversation. You have to, again, apply critical thinking. You have to connect dots properly here, versus coming into a relationship problem with a selfish child. And think about this, like Santa Claus with with some goodies on your, in your bag, and just thinking, what, my whole focus is going to be this way, on getting the child just to make their bed and pick up their toys. Think about sit down, come instead. None of it's going to be on actually trying to connect dots properly here. I'm just going to focus that way and then make assumptions and then lead other people into assumptions. See, that's the problem here, right? Just think about that whole dynamic. That's exactly what's going on in the dog training world. So again, get back to this issue about understanding behavior. Think about, the example I just used, the selfish child becomes more and more selfish, behavior issues escalate. So when you look at even, and this is where you get this thing about younger dogs, puppies, right away. It's part of, their need level. Dogs have social needs. It's how they connect. So when you bring a dog home right away, that connection is already happening. And so it leads into this issue of, suddenly you're like, man, how much is teething and how much is destructive behavior, housebreaking. This is like a disaster. This dog take the dog out, come back in, goes again, and just clean up messes. Now the dog's going inside of its crate. Well, understand, this is the whole thing about relationship, okay? About, how that state of mind is expressed, how you're perceived, all those things, how that all links in, which I'll talk about again as I go through all of this. So again, if you have questions, leave them on the videos. I'll be more than happy to answer them as I go through this series. This is meant to be more of a kind of just keep things as simple as possible. But the parenting example, understand that's very helpful. You start to consider the parenting example. You'll start to understand why it matters, okay, right at the beginning, to reconcile things properly, behavior issues properly, line the stuff up, because that brings the focus on to you the right way. Because in the end, all that matters is a better relationship with your dog that's going to be predictable, okay? You can say, okay, moving through this process, coming on the other side, even dealing with extreme issues such as aggression, which I'll talk about. you know, it matters. So, but again, I'll be continue to talk to this in my series. Thanks for watching.